Good afternoon, everyone. Liam Neild here with the MU review for Manchester United's final game of the Premier League season at home to Bournemouth. It was a bit of a weird one. I think it's the first time in history, at least in the Premier League, or at least in my memory, I should say, when the final game of the league season has been one singular game. It's usually, 10 games played simultaneously, and obviously that was down to the big bomb scare at Old Trafford on Sunday, which was, quite alarming to say the least, but obviously ended up being quite benign in the end. And ultimately, it really took a lot of fun out of the occasion for me because I love the final day of the season. I've had great final days. I've had awful final days. See 2008 and 2012, respectively there. But not having a final day, at least not having one where United were playing and competing for something like we were supposed to be, was a bit of a letdown, especially when City did get the point against Swansea. Because I just felt like, well, if we had been playing at the same time, who knows how psychologically that might have affected City. I don't even know if those players knew what was going on at Old Trafford, but if they did, then you have to imagine that them knowing that United weren't even playing probably took a little bit of the pressure off their backs, especially if we had, maybe scored a few goals against Bournemouth at half-time, and with Swansea and City at 1-1, City might have started to get a bit nervous, make some mistakes, but ultimately it's a hollow argument because United haven't made top four this season down to the fact that United haven't been one of the top four teams in England now. We did only lose top four on goal difference to City, which means that any 1 point that we've dropped, if we had drawn with West Ham, it would have been enough, against them. And there's countless other examples that you can point to throughout the season where we've just not done well, and we've not just lived up to the expectations of the club, and that's why we are where we are. But that being said, the game itself, as it was a dead rubber essentially. I mean, technically we needed to get a point or a win to qualify for the Europa League, but no one really gave a toss about that. And not a lot of people turned up, so I think that's a lot of the season ticket holders who have been going to every game can't be bothered to go to the last one on a Tuesday night when it's not for anything. And I can't say I blame them for that. I don't think it's a sign that United fans are waning in their support. I feel like that would happen at any stadium. If it had happened to City, the Etihad would have been completely empty. The Etihad would have been, in full effect there. So, I don't think it comes down to United losing support for any reason. I think it's just, the situation itself caused that. And obviously, with the bomb scare itself, even though it did prove to be benign, a lot of people probably stayed away just for fear that something would happen. Now, obviously, that's a bit silly because the stadium where there was a bomb scare 2 days ago is probably the safest place in the world from terrorism. But, it's understandable that people would maybe think that way and use that as another reason to avoid Old Trafford on Tuesday. That being said, for the first 45 minutes, it looked like people had a good reason to avoid it. It was absolutely dire. Nothing was going on. It was slow. It was boring. I was surprised the people who did turn up didn't walk out at half-time. But that being said, we improved greatly in the second half. Rooney and Rashford were absolutely superb. Rooney was spraying balls all over the park. The crowd were chanting, "We can't believe it's not Scholes." And he was picking out Marcus Rashford and Martial quite often, and both of those players look like they have great futures for United. I'm especially excited about Marcus Rashford, especially because his call up to the England squad. Now, at first, I wasn't really on board with him being called up to the England squad. I mean, he's never even represented them at under 21 level, let alone a senior team in an international tournament. But with that being said, he looks like he's got the talent, and if you're good enough, you're old enough. And it could be a really good experience for him to go to the tournament. That being said, I don't know if he'll make the final squad. He'll definitely have to impress in the warm-up games that we've got coming up for England. But I think that partnership between Rooney and Rashford could interest Roy Hodgson, especially because he could use it to pair it with another partnership of Ali and Kane over at Spurs, who are also playing for England this summer. If he could make them into a really interesting attacking unit, we could be very effective in the summer. But obviously, that's another discussion for another day. On the day itself, obviously, Rooney and Rashford both got on the score sheet, and Rooney picked out the assist for Ashley Young's goal as well. So it really was quite a good day for both of those players, and I'm assuming that they're going to form, part of the spine of the team next year. I'm personally hoping we do sign Zlatan Ibrahimovic so that we can take a bit of the pressure off of Martial and Rashford and let them grow and mature into the players that they can be, and maybe that would do Memphis Depay a world of good as well, to bring in a player of that stature. But I do want to make sure that we bring in a player, if we do bring in a striker, who isn't going to who isn't a long-term plan. Because I don't believe that we need a long-term plan. I think we've got one. I think we've got Rashford, we've got Martial, who could eventually play up front as well. And I don't want someone to come in and replace them. As good as Aubameyang or Griezmann would be for United, there's always the chance that they don't work and they could take time away from young players who look like they're going to develop quite well. But with that being said, the game itself ended. The season petered out a bit for us in the end. And overall, at the end of the day, it's a disappointing season. For a while it looked like it was going to be a lot worse than it ended up being. We've still got an FA Cup final coming up on Saturday, which can sort of end things on a positive note. But I'm amazed that Van Gaal, stayed in the job this whole time. It's been a very difficult year to be a United fan, a very frustrating year. After thinking that we were going to go from strength to strength, we've actually lost ground on what we've done last season. So in the summer, we've got to really look at each player and look at what our plan is for the long term. Liverpool have a long term plan, City have a long term plan. We need Spurs have a long term plan. We need to come up with what we're going to do. If that means moving LVG on and bringing in Mourinho, do it. If that means giving LG an extra year and throwing all your chips on Giggs, do it. Let's be decisive. Let's not fart about anymore. Let's just say what we're going to do. If you want to change the plan, now's the time to do it. Otherwise, full steam ahead with the original plan, despite the fact that it's maybe not unfolding exactly as we thought at this point. But I did think it was quite interesting. Just a few last words on the game. I did think it was quite interesting that United obviously hosted the opening day of the season, or the first game of the season. We had the early kickoff back in August against Spurs. I remember it very well. I got up at the crack of dawn here in North Carolina to watch the game at 7:45 in the morning after going to bed at 4 o'clock the previous morning, or the previous evening, morning, whatever you want to call it. And it was one of the dullest games I've seen. But then again, that was symptomatic of things to come. And the game was settled by a Kyle Walker own goal, an English defender. And then come the end of the season, because of the delay, United also get the honour of hosting the final game of the season, definitively the only game being played on this day, the final game to be played. And although it wasn't decided by own goal, it was an English defender, this time for Man United, who put an own goal in to score the last goal of the English season. And I think with the fact that we've got two English players at the top of the Golden Boot scoring charts as strikers, we've got some great young attacking talent, in midfield as well, along with, Wayne Rooney looks like he might hit form. Our defence is still going to be shite enough to let us down in the summer, and that maybe is the omen and the thing that we need to take away from that, funny little coincidence. After the match, Louis van Gaal got out on the pitch and did his, end of season speech. It was, I'm not going to say he was saying goodbye, because we don't know if he was yet. I do believe him when he says that he believes he'll be here next season. But with that being said, I don't think it's up to him, and I think he knows that. And if it is decided, if Ed Woodward does make a decision and finally cut the cord on Louis, or put his faith in him, whatever happens, if he does get another shot, he needs to win the FA Cup. And then if he does get a chance to build on that, he needs to get us not just top four, he needs to get us challenging for the league. He needs to get us top three in his last year, or we're going to look back on Louis van Gaal's reign as a bit of a, static, steadying of the ship after the disaster of Moyes' year at United. So that's not the worst reputation in the world, especially considering he's brought through some, fantastic young players who look like they're really going to form the spine of our team in the future. But ultimately, it's really not good enough for a club like Man United, and he's not going to be remembered all that fondly. Obviously, I think he's a funny bloke. He seems like a nice guy. He's definitely a gifted football manager. It's just not really worked out for him yet. So it'll be interesting to see if he gets another chance. I don't really have a hard opinion on it. I can see pros and cons to both sides. And so, we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. I assume that we'll get some sort of announcement one way or the other come, Sunday or Monday. I do believe that if Van Gaal is going to go, there will be a resignation or a parting of ways, by mutual consent following the cup final. And if there's no news after the cup final, we're going to have to assume that Louis is staying for another year. And at this point, I don't know for sure which is the right decision. I don't think anybody does, so we'll have to just wait and see. My man of the match for the game was Wayne Rooney. I thought he was superb, and it's good for him. I said that it's been probably over a decade since Wayne Rooney went into an international tournament fully fit. He went on off the back of injuries into the World Cup in 2014, or also in Euro 2012, the World Cup in 2010, after he had a great season in 2010 and 2012. Late injuries really scuppered his chances of making an impact at the tournament. And this year he got his injury again, but he got it a couple of months earlier than he usually did. I remember back in 2006 when he was, still the young 21-year-old wonder kid who had just lit up the Euros, was about to go to his first World Cup, and he broke his metatarsal. 3 weeks away from the tournament, and they still took him, even though they probably shouldn't have. And he came on in the quarterfinal to make his first appearance for England, and he was rubbish, got sent off, and England went out on penalties. So he's been a bit hard done by. The one tournament where he was fully fit and ready to go was when he was 18 years old, and now he's an old man. By football standards, he's in his 30s. He's moving on from his peak. Some say he's been long gone from his peak. So I think it's good for him that that injury did come a bit earlier, because it gave him the time to come back into the team properly. He definitely worked his way back in, very slowly and gradually to make sure he built up all that fitness, because he isn't as young as he once was. And because of that, I think that he's benefited from it. And now that he seems to have accepted, that United will be playing him at central midfield, we don't know if England will or not. But now that we have accepted that, it does seem that he's going to, commit to his future there. And I think that could be a very exciting prospect for club and country, and we can only hope. So a good performance by him, good performance by the team in the end. I'm really looking forward to the cup final on Saturday. I can say I'm definitely confident, but I'm nowhere near as confident as I should be, for us playing a team who's finished 16th. Usually if we'd go into a game like that, I'd be, dead certain we were going to win. But it's a cup final, anything can happen. Arsenal almost lost to Hull a couple of years ago, and I'm pretty sure if Hull didn't get relegated that season, they got relegated last season, I think. So it really was not, it's never a clear-cut thing, especially with Louis van Gaal. But hopefully we can go there. It won't be too dramatic, won't be too uncomfortable. We can just go there and win the FA Cup in style, maybe like Arsenal did last season, and that will give Louis something positive to build on, or something positive to end on, whatever the case may be. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you for anyone who's been watching these reviews. I am going to do a review of the final game of the season, the FA Cup, between United and Crystal Palace on Saturday, and then I'm probably going to work on getting my brother Matt back on to discuss the season as a whole for United, and where we need to go from there. And then I'm probably going to kick on with some coverage of Euro 2016 from an England fan's perspective, a suffering England fan who is trying to avoid optimism going into a tournament where it's always let him down before. So if you've been watching these videos, I appreciate it. Keep watching them, please. Probably going to make a new channel for it next season, so these might be the last few that you see here on my channel. Yeah, anyway, if anyone stayed through the 12 minutes of me rambling on about a completely pointless game in the Premier League, you guys are the best. If you haven't, well, I can't blame you. Regardless, thanks for watching, and